So we all know that webinar program stands for multiple, hence being a program. But how does a company determine the frequency of how often they should be delivering webinars?
That's a loaded question. So here's what we know. First and foremost, marketers or people that conduct over 10 webinars in a calendar year are 34% more content with their program or happy about their program. They feel that it drives more return on investment. And that's because when you're doing one-offs, you never get into a process flow as it relates to webinars. And so they are always a lot of work. And I guess 10's the magical number where you got a process in place and they feel like that they've got it down and they can do it. So on the other side of it, we also know that like a television program that you can't count on back in the day, if it was moving around a lot, it was usually death of that TV show. If it had a primetime spot and then they moved it to a Saturday or to a worse date of viewing, you pretty much knew it was going to get canceled sooner or later. And that's because if your audience can't depend on it happening, you're going to lose that audience to someone else who is conducting a program. So on both sides of the equation, from the organizer and the audience, is that having a program makes sense, right? You finish a webinar, you can promote your next webinar. People can depend on it. So what I guess the simplest thing to say is you want to look to do 10 or more webinars in a calendar year for those two reasons. But it is really an individualized choice.
Sure.
So recently, we've seen some data that I've presented a number of times from Microsoft. They came out at a conference and they put a big slide up on the screen that said that they recognized that they could drive 7.2% of webinar viewers became purchasers. And for them, they were running a number of very large webinars. And once they understood that, they started using a scalpel rather than a sledgehammer approach to their webinar program and said, hey, if we know this, we need to be doing lots of webinars to affect our different products and funnel, very complex marketing organization. And so they ballooned to 130 webinars a month.
Wow.
Yeah, like it's nuts, right?
It's multiple times a day.
Right. So they're not doing them all live. There's a whole strategy they have in place for that. But what I mean by that is, they didn't know that, right, until they had that data. So I can't say to you what is the ideal number. Maybe it's one. I don't know. But if a safe bet is you want to plan for 10 or more a year.
Sure.
And I say commit, right? Like say you're going to do it. We're going to run 10 webinars this year and even pick the dates. Get that done. Because the thing that we often see is you wait for an idea, you wait for a piece of content, you wait for an influencer to reach out to you, to reach out to them to make it happen. And then you will miss these windows. You'll go 3 months without doing a webinar when you plan to do 10, or you'll do a whole bunch at the end of the year.
Sure.
So when you commit, you lock them in, you say they're happening, now it's about making sure you find the content to do it. Because if you're considering webinars, you must have some idea of why you're doing those webinars. And then once you commit to that and you've built your KPIs around it, like how many leads do you want to generate, how much pipe do you want to influence, or whatever it is, now you can really create a strategy around it. You're never going to have a strategy around your webinar program if you just wait for someone to ask you, oh, I've got a topic for a webinar. Great, we're going to do a webinar.
Right.
That's not a strategy. So start with 10, probably end up doing more. And then from there, figure out, when you start getting the data in, you can figure out what's the right cadence for you and your organization.